You did not fail at fasting. You are simply holding the wrong biological switch for too long. If you have ever tried fasting and quit, I want you to listen carefully to this. The problem is not your discipline. The problem is that you are approaching it as an isolated behavior instead of as part of a hormonal system. Most people think in a very linear way. Eat more, gain weight. Eat less, lose weight. Not working, try harder. But your body does not read your determination. It reads biological signals. When you eat, insulin rise. Insulin is a storage hormone. It tells the body energy is abundant. Store it. While insulin remains high, fat cannot be released efficiently. Not because you are lazy, not because you lack willpower, but because the biological signal has not yet given permission. In the first few hours after your last meal, your body is still operating in growth mode. Glucose remains in the bloodstream. Insulin is still present. No major shift happens immediately. But internally, a clock has already started counting down. Around 12 hours later, insulin begins to drop significantly. The liver releases glycogen to keep blood sugar stable. This is the first step of metabolic switching, the shift in metabolic state. And if you break this cycle too early, you will never reach the real switch. Many people fast for 16 hours, yet still keep insulin high because the previous meal was too late, too large, or too misaligned with their circadian rhythm. They think they have tried, but their hormones were never allowed to turn off. This is where linear thinking becomes harmful. When results do not come, you extend the fast. 20 hours, 24 hours, 36 hours. You turn it into a test of willpower. But if your nervous system is stressed, if cortisol is high, if sleep is disrupted, you are only pushing an already imbalanced system further. The body does not respond to pressure by optimizing. It responds by conserving. Fasting is not an exercise in enduring hunger. It is a signal that the environment has shifted into temporary scarcity mode. And in that state, insulin drops. mTOR decreases. AMPK rise. And the body begins to prioritize repair rather than storage. But if your surrounding environment is chaotic, irregular sleep, excessive nighttime light, mistimed meals, high stress, the hormonal system will receive conflicting signals. One part of the body hears energy shortage. Another part hears danger. The result is that it stays on alert. And when that alert state persists, belly fat will not easily leave. Mild chronic inflammation will not simply subside. The brain will not shift into the clear state you expect. I want you to ask yourself a different question instead of, do I have enough discipline? Ask, am I creating the right signaling environment for my hormones to shift state? Because when insulin drops deeply enough and for long enough, when the nervous system believes there is no danger, when the circadian rhythm is stable, the body does not need you to force it to burn fat. It does that on its own. That is our evolutionary design. Part 1. The biological switch insulin, mTOR, and circadian rhythm. If in the previous section we talked about flawed thinking, now I want you to look directly at the real switch, controlling the entire system. Insulin. Insulin is not just a hormone that regulates blood sugar, it is a growth signal. When insulin is high, the body understands one thing: only energy is abundant. Prioritize storage and building. The problem with modern life is not eating too much in a single meal. It is that we rarely allow insulin to drop for long enough. After about 12 hours without food, insulin begins to decrease significantly. The body shifts to using glycogen stored in the liver. By around 24 hours, glycogen is nearly depleted. And this is the true turning point. The body is forced to switch to burning fat and producing ketones as fuel for the brain. This is not starvation. This is metabolic switching, a shift in metabolic state, a mechanism pre-programmed in your DNA. But there is a deeper layer that few people talk about: mTOR and AMPK. mTOR is a growth signal. When you eat continuously, especially protein and carbohydrate, mTOR is activated. This is beneficial for muscle building and short-term recovery. But if mTOR is never turned off, the body will prioritize constant growth and delay repair. Fasting reduces mTOR and activates AMPK, the repair and energy-conserving signal. When AMPK rises, autophagy becomes more active. Cells clear damaged proteins, faulty mitochondria, and restructure the system from the inside. This is why fasting is not simply cutting calories. It is a shift in biological priority from growth to maintenance. But there is one factor that determines this entire process, and that many people ignore: circadian rhythm. Insulin does not operate independently. Insulin sensitivity is highest during the day and gradually declines in the evening. If you eat late, you are asking the body to process energy at a time when it has already prepared for repair and rest. You may fast for 16 hours, but if your last meal was at 11 o'clock at night, the biological clock is still misaligned. Hormones receive conflicting signals. The body does not only ask how much energy is there, it asks what time is it. When you keep insulin high at night and cortisol high in the morning due to sleep deprivation, you are holding two switches in the wrong position at the same time. The result is poor fat burning efficiency, shallow sleep, fluctuating energy, unstable hunger signals. This is not a personal failure. This is a disrupted signaling system. The key point I want you to understand: fat loss, improved energy, increased mental clarity, all depend on whether you allow insulin enough time to drop and whether your circadian rhythm is aligned with your eating behavior. You do not need extreme prolonged fasting. You need to allow the biological switch to fully change state. Part 2. The signaling environment. No safety, no repair. You can lower insulin. You can activate AMPK. But if the nervous system remains in a state of alert, the body will not enter an optimal mode. This is the deeper layer of the issue: the HPA axis, the hypothalamus, pituitary, and adrenal axis. It controls cortisol, and cortisol is the hormone that determines whether the environment is safe or dangerous. When stress is prolonged, cortisol remains elevated at a baseline level. This does not only affect psychology, it changes metabolism. Chronically high cortisol raises blood glucose to prepare for fight, reduces insulin sensitivity, suppresses cellular repair as the body prioritizes survival. You may fast, but if the brain still believes the environment is dangerous, the body will not interpret it as controlled energy restriction. It interprets it as crisis. And when the body believes it is in crisis, it holds on to energy. This is why some people fast, yet belly fat does not decrease. Sleep becomes worse. Resting heart rate increases. Hunger feels intense and difficult to control. They are forcing the system instead of redesigning the signaling environment. Look deeper. Autophagy, the cellular cleanup mechanism, increases significantly when nutrients are absent. But research also shows that chronic stress can disrupt this process. Cells do not enter an efficient repair state if warning signals still dominate. Biology only repairs when it believes there is enough safety to invest in the future. This leads to a principle that few people mention: predictability matters more than intensity. If your sleep time changes every day, if meals are sometimes early, sometimes late, if your work schedule is irregular, The nervous system does not receive a stable, repeating pattern. And without repetition, it maintains a baseline level of alertness. The body does not hate fasting. The body hates chaos. 1 week of perfect eating followed by 3 weeks of disorder does not create positive adaptation. But 30 days with a steady rhythm, fixed wake time, consistent eating window, stable morning light will reset the entire hormonal system. Rhythm is the strongest signal the body understands. When the environment becomes stable, cortisol declines at the right time. Insulin drops more deeply. Sleep becomes deeper. And then, repair happens naturally. You do not need to force the body to burn fat. You need to make it believe everything is safe. Part 3. Redesigning the system rhythm matters more than intensity. If you understand this far, you will see the problem was never, am I strong enough? The question is, are you placing your body inside the right signaling system? We do not need more effort. We need the right leverage. The first leverage point, stabilize your eating window. Not extreme extension, but allowing insulin the opportunity to drop deeply enough every day at roughly the same time. When the body sees repetition, it begins to predict, and when there is prediction, hormones regulate more smoothly. The second leverage point, anchor your circadian rhythm with your wake-up time. A stable wake-up time is the strongest signal for cortisol and melatonin. If you constantly change it, you disrupt the entire endocrine axis. A fixed wake-up hour has far greater impact than forcing yourself to fast 2 extra hours. The third leverage point, reduce signal conflict, late eating. Bright light at night, high stress, these are signals that say danger still present. When these signals decrease and become predictable, the nervous system shifts from vigilance to regulation. This is asymmetric leverage, small change. Stable, repeated, but hitting the right switch? Now I want you to understand the core principle. Biology loves rhythm. It does not love intensity. One 48-hour fast does not create a sustainable system if the following week returns to chaotic eating. But a steady 14 to 16-hour window maintained for several weeks will restore insulin sensitivity, sleep quality, and baseline energy. Biological adaptation does not occur because you push hard. It occurs because you send the same signal long enough, and instead of measuring success by body weight or fasting hours, read the internal signals. Do you feel sleepy at the right time, more consistently? Is your hunger clearer and more stable? Is afternoon energy less volatile? Is there less mental fog? When these shift, the system has changed state. Body composition will follow. Your body does not need to be forced to change. It needs to be placed in the correct signaling environment. When the environment says safe and stable, hormones self-regulate. Metabolism rebalances. Repair activates on its own. Health Explained does not sell motivation. It does not sell iron willpower. We simply help you see the signals that are quietly disrupting your system and redesign them. If you want to understand your body as a living ecosystem rather than a number on a scale, follow the channel. Here, we do not try harder. We design smarter.